Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. We're at the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show, and the cool thing about the show is anyone who is anyone in ice fishing is here, and we have one of the guys that just about everybody who's ever gone ice fishing knows who he is and loves him. It's Bro Brosdahl. Brian, thanks for joining the show.
Oh, thank you. I was looking over my shoulder and seeing who it could be.
You know what's fun about this is behind you there's a big window and there's lots of people walking by, and throughout the show you'll have people peeking in and looking, seeing what's going on here. So yeah, make sure you give them a wave once in a while. There's lots of fun stuff happening out there.
Oh, it's great. I love this. It's very fraternal. It's fun, and it seems like we're separated by such a few degrees. You know, it's amazing seeing people from year to year, and everybody wants to go fishing and they want to ice fish, and it ain't hard to want to go ice fishing. We love it. It's here. And I think sometimes living here, some people don't appreciate it. There's people who come from warm climates that don't have ice, and they'll fly up to go ice fishing, and from other countries to fish here and try it on the ice. It's truly an amazing thing. And it can be cold, but more than anything else, it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're seeing it out here on the show floor right now. Tons and tons of people, and the sport is really growing. What do you think is behind the growth of ice fishing right now?
Well, ice fishing is something you could do with everybody. In a boat, you could take 2 or 3, 4 people, whatever the Coast Guard recommendations are. On the ice, you could bring a small town. You know, if it's a tournament, you got to get a permit, but it's about being able to go and the ability to fish with in a way that's not very expensive. It's cost effective, a bucket and a way to get through the ice, some rods. And when I started, I made rods, you know, out of broken summer rods, and it's so simple. But you know, ice fishing can be what you want it to be. If you want to do it a simple way, or you could be a fish like a pro. Fishing like a pro is where you might as well hit the register signs, cha-ching. But in open water, to have the boat that I'm running as a pro for tournaments and for guiding, you know how much boats are. I mean, they're like a lot. I mean, when I first started, my first boat for guiding was $4,500. And now I don't even want to say the price tag. I could buy a house in my area right now for the price of the boats. And ice fishing, the best snowmobile, the best four-wheelers on tracks and all that stuff are a fraction of that cost. And you don't need to do that. A running a snow machine, if depending on which side of north or south you are, a snowmobile is an ice fishing machine. And four-wheelers are nice, but if you get a lot of snow, it's a snowmobile. And it's not expensive, and kids love it because they can look at fish on an aquaview. They can eat the fish later. I caught this, or they could let it go, give it a name and let it go. But it's very family like. And remember, you know, one of the things, winter's long, and you need something to do. And winter's a lot more fun if you have something called a throttle on a machine that you could press to go to a spot and set the hook. And it's about catching fish. It's about fishing, first of all. Well, we know it's about catching fish, but the fishing part's a lot of fun. And one thing about ice fishing is, and this is, I have a Facebook site called Fishing is My Excuse to Be in Extraordinary Places. And it truly is. Ever since I was a kid, I always thought that, and I said it like that. I was an old man in a 9-year-old's body when I came up with that term. All my family said, but I love being outside. I like being on the lakes. And in the wintertime, the sights and the sounds you hear are different than summer. Summer is absolutely gorgeous with loons and birds and wave action. But in the wintertime, the sound of the breeze rolling through the leafless trees and through the dunes of the snow is its own sound. It's a hooing wind, and it's just really cool. And outside of that, you know, because it's, you know, I'm not trying to make it like just an observation that's way over the edge, but it really is. It's a lot of fun, and you can go on the ice. You can walk up to anybody there, even crabs, and they'll say hi to you or talk to you a little bit. And in open water, it's a little different. People want their space, their privacy, their boat. I'm not going to take my boat and just drive over someone's bobbers to go say hi to them. But in the wintertime, hey, how you doing? It's like, it's really neat, and I think that's why ice fishing is growing so fast. And winter's long, let's face it, up here.
Yeah, we're recording this in Minnesota. We got plenty of winter, and a couple days here we got some really cold weather coming in. You talked about extraordinary places. One of the things why we wanted to have you on today is the last time we talked to you, you kind of said Leech Lake was your favorite place. So I wanted to talk to you about Leech Lake today. Mm-hmm. What is it about Leech Lake that's special to you?
Leech Lake is a natural lake that was dammed up to create more acreage of water. So it hasn't been raised that much. It's just a matter of 4 feet. I'm just guessing off the top of my head because I can't even remember everything perfect. But excuse me, the Leech Lake is 113,000 something acres. So it's a lot of acres. Almost, probably with the high water, it's even a little more because it's probably up a half a foot or so. The Army Corps of Engineers really maintains waterways really real close. But Leech Lake has really good walleye fishing, and the size structure, you can catch about everything. If you like just catching eaters and go fry them up, yeah, you have that. If you want to truly seek out trophies and catch walleyes that are 28, even up to 30 inches, yeah, it has that. Muskies, and it has, and it's known to have its share of muskies that are pushing or over 50 inches, and even muskies over 55 inches. That there's been many 55 inchers caught out there, and it's just a little bit bigger, but then you're starting to get splitting hairs, but maybe it's the same fish. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, and there's big slab crappies, and there's small crappies too. I mean, they're not all big because it gets fished, and but there's eater crappies, and there's big ones, big throwback picture crappies, 2-pounders, and I see them every year. Not a lot of them. The average size is 11 to 13 inches, so it's just quite a range. There's nice bluegills from eater size, under 9 inches to trophy 9, 10s, and even bluegills pushing 11 inches. And where do you see that? You just don't. Hybrids, great smallmouth, okay smallmouth bass fishery. Smallmouth don't exist in very many spots on Leech, maybe about 10% of the entire body of water, but they're coming around, and they've always been there. They're not an invasive. They've always been there, and there's some nice ones. Largemouth bass, they do tournaments there, and they have tremendous weigh-ins, but the smallies are starting to win them. So if that gives you an idea. And for those that like jumbo perch, there's jumbo perch in there. What's a true jumbo? A fish over 11 inches? There's a lot of them in there. And there's perch. I've caught them up to 15. But a good one there, a true good-sized giant perch, is over 14. Mouth closed, tail pinched. Remember, people, mouth closed, tail pinched. That's how we measure fish. Don't stretch the jaw and the top of the tail. That's cheating. But there's whitefish in there. There's tulipies in there. There's 20-pound class northerns in there. And there's a whole bunch of hammer handles, those 2 to 3 pounders that drive you nuts. There's a lot of those. And that's just that's not getting into subspecies. Well, there's eelpout in there also. The festival keeps the population under control there, though. They really do. A lot of people come to the eelpout festival. But Leech Lake has everything. Is it the best of anything? I don't know if it's the best of one particular species. But if I could have a place on Leech Lake, I would. It's not inexpensive there. Let's just say that. If it's inexpensive, there's a reason usually on Leech. Leech is a premium place to buy a spot, but they do exist. And it's a place where you could say, well, I'm going to go for this today, or I'm going to go for that. What happens is you're on a large body of water. So when I guide in Leech, my profits go down because I spend more gas. You just do, because you'll be fishing a spot and you'll say, well, I got to go try this spot 18 miles away.
Right.
And it's also, besides all those fish and besides having quality fish, it has huge waves at times. So you got to factor that in. You're not going to fish in Walker Bay and then the north end of Portage Bay in the same day unless you're really after it. On a nice day, you'll just cruise it because it's fun. But there's also a lot of rocky areas, and there's some sandy areas. A lot of hardwoods around the shoreline. But it's kind of a neat area, and the lake itself has deep, clear waters, and it has shallow, murkier waters. And from one end to the other, it's several different type of lakes all in one. I mean, you could catch a fish in Walker Bay, and I don't recommend doing it because they pop, but you could pull them out of depths that, what they call Davy Jones Locker. There's fish down there. And there's other parts of the lake where you catch walleyes in 3 feet. So it's kind of cool like that, and sparsely populated along the lake. You'll be in areas where you'll see cabins, and then the other side of the areas will be no cabins because it's federal land. And unless the feds sell it, outside of that, it's a lot of trees and water, and the scenery is amazing. There's on any given day, it's a giant lake. There could be 100 boats out there, and you might not see one because they're fishing for this or they're doing that. But so it's a really tough list. I don't like picking favorite lakes because I like them all.
Right.
I have little lakes I like. Winnebagosh is a great lake. Cass, Lake of the Woods. Those walleyes, if you could put a hot dog down there and they'll eat it. I mean, that's Lake of the Woods. People go there because they're hungry. I mean, they just swim up and eat your bait. You don't have to sell it to them. You could suggest it and they pound it, and Leech is a good ice fishing spot, but don't expect Lake of the Woods results because Lake of the Woods is a day bite. But I've caught a lot of walleyes in Leech Lake in the middle of the day, and they just come up and just hammer it. Red Lake's an amazing lake because that lake, walleye, if you could remove the water and see the walleyes, it must just look like ants on candy. They're just everywhere out there. There's walleyes swimming around that big, and the acreage that we could fish on Red Lake is just flat with little rock piles. Red has become super popular and taking a lot of pressure off Leech in the wintertime. And so I'd say if I had to pick one, I pick Leech because the diversity of fish. And I just answered anybody's question that's looking for a retirement spot. And the real estate people should buy me a beer for that. But definitely is the highest on my list if I had to pick one, and I did. And you got to hear a lot of other names when I did that. Yeah,
we kind of... It was a winding, twisted road there.
It was, and the car's still intact.
So, when we're going to go walleye fishing on Leech, how do you tackle a body of water like that? What are you looking for when you're deciding where we're going to go ice fishing for walleyes on Leech?
Well, to give you kind of an idea of how Leech works, in the summertime it's wind-driven. So if the wind's blowing into a shoreline point, there is fish there. And if there's not fish there, it's because there's 30 boats hitting that same point with the same idea. But you can get away from boats out there really easy. In the wintertime, well, that doesn't happen. So what you're looking for is flats. There is structure out there. And structure, you can put a house and maybe get several visits out of it and have luck. It's mainly an evening bite in the wintertime because... of the clear water, and it's a glacial lake. It has its finicky sides to it. So, not my favorite place to guide for walleyes, but if they're biting, it's my favorite because they're bigger and they're nicer, and it's got an easy slot over there, just 1/20. You're allowed 4 fish, but it just means that you can catch really nice fish. The ones you do get, your keepers are usually 17 to 19 and a half, and then you can keep one over if you want. You can get a trophy, but the fish will be on these flats working their way through, and they're swimming fish. Some lakes you really have to be right on the spot. There are spot on spots, don't get me wrong, but you could fish for perch and catch a walleye out there because they swim through, and that's what I love about lakes like that as they're swimming. So get on the edge of a flat where it drops, or find the shallowest part of the flat, and they will come through as they swim through to inspect the bottom for crayfish or young of the year perch. Buckshot rattle spoon in a perch pattern of gold works really good, and buckshot flutter spoon with the light stick will work there. That's just a that's like peanut butter and jelly when fishing leech in the wintertime.
How about perch? You talked about perch, and I know
Jumbo perch, yeah, they're. Oh, is there anything better to eat?
One of my favorites.
I love perch, and big perch swim the flats also. In the wintertime, a lot of our cabbage weeds and milfoil kind of dies off and lays down. And perch love vegetation because the crayfish eat it and they're in it. So their food's hanging all over the place, climbing up on the vegetation. And perch are eating crayfish. There's some freshwater shrimp. It's not like Devil's Lake or anything, but there is shrimp there. There's mayfly larvae and there's young of the year perch. So spoons, flashy spoons in 10 to 14 feet of water. And 14 is a magic number on leech. That's where light fades and the fish feel safe. 12, sometimes 12 feet is good, but you're fishing flats and you realize, where do I even start on this flat? Whether it's walleyes or perch, they're usually schooled on edges of each other, where the perch and the walleye start. So you just go fishing for both, and then you catch them both, because you can't put a spoon big enough for a perch to stay off. I tried that. I had lake trout spoons that I caught perch on just to see if they would, and they did. They're not the finicky perch that swim around with 25 shrimp in their mouth. These are perch that swim up and eat it. And the problem is the tiniest perch in the lake will eat a big spoon. So it's a lot of perch sorting, but you catch walleyes and perch mixed together. They like cara beds, which is a skeletal fragmented grass that lays about the lake. They don't have roots, and heavy waves cause it to flip over like a sheet and pillow up. Well, this becomes structure, and they swim amongst it. Cara, if you remember, which is a form of algae, is a spawning weed where walleyes and perch and everything else lay their eggs, and it has an antifungal agent in it to keep the eggs viable. Well, this also holds crayfish and sometimes be more hard bottom creatures, but a lot of insect life and crayfish, so they root through it and they work the edges. Good place if you're looking down the hole and it looks like a bunch of skeletal vegetation. You're in a good spot, and fish those areas. And now that stuff changes from year to year depending on the wind, or somebody's anchor.
I know you're a bluegill guy.
Oh yeah.
What do you do for bluegills out on Leech?
I love bluegills, and you want to know my favorite spot? I bet you do.
We love it.
Well, I will say the bluegills are in every bay there. Their population is small for the lake of that size. They're not throughout the lake. Like on a small lake, there'll be bluegills everywhere. But the bluegills there are in vegetated areas. And they're there. The wintertime's tough for bluegills there. If I sent you there in the winter, you'll never fish leech again for bluegills. For me, summertime fishing cabbage beds and slip bobber fishing with small leeches is the best. And from spring till summer, very catchable. In wintertime, if you find vegetation, good tall standing vegetation, there's going to be bluegills in it. But they're spot on the spot things. There's a lot of water that is not bluegill water. And what happens on Leech Lake, so let's say you take the parts of the lake that hold bluegills, I bet you're only 10% of the entire lake. And there are areas that look like they could be, but they're not. They don't have the right this or right that. Need a little mud, need a little cabbage, need a little coontail. And they don't just drop into one deep hole where you could just pick at them like some lakes. There are lakes that everybody could just wipe out because every fish is in a tiny hole. Nope. On Leech Lake, they'll be in these big flats areas like everything else, just a little shallower in the perch, and you catch them perch fishing. Mm-hmm. And but there are years where you catch them when you're not fishing for them on the ice, and then you start fishing for them and you don't catch them again, and you drill everywhere. It's one of those fisheries. It's a window thing, and they bite right before dark. They move up on where the weeds were, and they feed on coronamids, which are a bloodworm. And small waxworms on jigs work really well. Some of the better areas are in and around the Walker area. There's no particular one spot that's better than the other. if you find vegetation, they're going to be real good vegetation. There's going to be bluegills in there. So give it a try, and you might be the only holes there. Because literally no one fishes there for bluegills in the winter. If you find holes and there's bluegills, that means I was there. True. That's just how it is. So so yeah, around that's about the best. And Leech Lake has little bays off of it. The bays that are shallow and weedy have the most gills, and a big one can pop up anywhere. It's well distributed and it's not overfished.
Awesome. You talked crappies earlier. Let's talk crappies on Leech.
Crappies on Leech in the wintertime. There's another migratory fish that in the middle of winter no one's finding them, but out in the middle in the walleye waters of the main basin, main lake on the rocks, swimming by, people have witnessed thousands and thousands of crappies, and they catch them as fast as they get it down, and there's 12 to 14 inches, and then they never see them again, and they're gone, and the school of fish is 200 yards wide. They swim through, and they'll leave the bays, swim around the lake, and it's like they don't swim the same water over and over, and they don't go deep. There's no way to corner them, but there are years that the fish will hold to weed lines, and then it's like a shooting gallery for them. But if you're going to fish crappies on Leech, we do better on the bays around Leech, and fish in the vegetation like you would for the gills. They're in the same spots, and they're really nice ones. So if you have electronics that shoot to the side in the wintertime, it ain't going to matter, because the lake is so giant. You got to go into the heavy vegetation to find them. And savvy ice anglers that hit the lake and use wax worms and small baits while they're perch fishing are catching bluegills and crappies both. And they're very drifty and scattered on the lake. So it could be a challenge in the ice for bluegills and crappies, but it could be pretty amazing on the perch and walleyes and northern pike. So it's just so big and limited on habitat for those type of fish.
Yeah. What about the pike out there? How are you going after those?
The pike, if you put out a tip up, the flag's gonna pop, and it shouldn't take too long, because it's a great lake for that. There's a lot of pike in Leech Lake, some of the highest numbers they've recorded creoling, and there's a lot of forage for them, so they do really well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
You got people outside the window. They're saying, "Hey."
Yeah, it's
tapping on the window. Welcome to the St. Paul Ice Show, folks.
I love it. This is great. We're having fun here, and I mean, it's got everything you need. There's ice fishing. There's pop, and there's hot dogs.
I had the chicken wild rice soup yesterday.
It's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Stop down, by all means. I'm going to be in the Frable booth quite a bit of the time. Fish Monkey is here, and that they make the best gloves in the world. The Humminbird is here with their electronics, Aquaview, and these are the booths I'm going to be in. Northland Fishing Tackle, and so I kind of go from booth to booth and kind of help man it, and as soon as it's busy I leave. Go to the next booth. No, I'm just kidding. I just love working here and being here, and it's about getting the story out about what exists.
Yeah, and one of the things I see you do a lot is you spend a lot of time just talking with people.
Yes.
And what's that like for you?
I love it. It's like I'm in a bait shop in the summertime before my guide trip, and I'm bumping into people, and they want to know the lowdown, and I give them a lowdown. So if I'm ever a few minutes late, and you know what happened, and that's what this is. This is in a bait shop. You're meeting with people right before you go fishing, and so they want the lowdown. They want to know what's new. And at this show, the wallets are flying out because everybody's buying good deals and having a great time, and it's kind of almost a social event. Like other shows are interesting, not like this. This here, I've seen people that were here since I've been here. There's people that they should punch a clock. They're here yesterday and today as long as me, and they're not tired like I am.
Spending a lot of time in here.
Oh, they love it. They love it, and that's why this show is so popular. Ice fishing is a friendly thing, but yeah, it's fun, and there's quite a few people in this building that are going to be heading to Leech too, but everybody's got their different species they go for, And walleyes are definitely the most sought after, but then in late winter everybody's after the perch.
Right.
And the bluegills and crappies, hardly anybody fishes for them. If they have a photo shoot for tackle or house company or something, they'll go for bluegills and crappies then, but nobody wants to drill that hard.
Yeah.
It's one of those lakes where you got to drill. Excuse me. And but yeah, so that's what I'd recommend. And then as far as whitefish, they get better later ice in deep water. And we catch largemouth bass everywhere. I've caught them perch fishing, walleye fishing, and they were just run out of vegetation. There is milfoil in the lake now, which is going to change everything. I do believe that it'll be easier to catch panfish in the years to come in the wintertime, as they have something to hold to, which helps hold them still for us. Mm-hmm. It's not about them being there. It's about them holding still for more than one day. And so milfoil, sometimes with lack of snow, will stay green and hold fish, and then we got a way to corner them, so to speak.
Something you didn't get a chance to talk about that you want to share?
Well, one thing on Leech Lake, I'd mentioned big spoons are fine and perch pattern spoons for walleyes and perch. But if you are fishing panfish, it's that hour of power. It doesn't. Generally, it's not a daytime bluegill crappie bite. It's hour of power. If you do find them, your best bite's going to be in that last when the sun's about hitting the treetops. And in open water, it's different. It's a morning bite, and it just seems like morning is really good. And then the evening can be good, but morning's good. But what changes in summers is you have bug hatches, and these activate the panfish and have a feeding during the day, and it could be good. But all that is it's just about getting there and going there and doing it. And even though it can be a little bit more work for panfish, it's way more rewarding. You could fish many other lakes and never see fish like you would here.
Lots of people outside want to get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
So really appreciate you coming on, Brian. If people want to learn more about you or find you, where's the best way to do that?
You could go to Facebook or Instagram and Twitter and check out Bro Brosdahl. And if you go to the Bro Brosdahl fan page, I have openings on my Facebook. It's full, but if you want to get on my Facebook, do that. You just got to wait for somebody to move or die or move on or something. But yeah, check that out, because then you can see what I'm up to all the time, and I could see what you're catching too. I appreciate you having me. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
You betcha.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.